That was The White Dress, a classic urban legend that goes back a number of years. I am here with the director now, Ethan Evans.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. We worked together on the Haunted Museum, and I absolutely love your episodes, love your direction. You grew up in the UK?
Yes.
Here in America, before the internet, you'd grow up in a town in high school and someone's like, dude, this girl put on a white dress for prom, but it was a dead person's dress, and then she became possessed, and the girl tried to kill her, and anyone who wore the dress died. That's a real dress. Like, everybody swore that it was real, but they knew one person who knew someone. There was like 1 or 2 degrees removed. Did that happen in the UK?
It was more ghost stories, you know. There's a lot of, like you were saying, people thinking they're true. It's kind of like a game of telephone where, you know, the best bits stick and everyone's going around the playground sharing these stories. It feels like urban legends feel very American, I think.
You know, obviously, in choosing the stories, there's so many to choose from. But one of the things I loved about The White Dress is that it has kind of classic ghost story imagery. There's something about the mix of the urban legend and the classic ghost story that I absolutely love. Had you heard the story of The White Dress before, and what excited you about the story, and what were you most excited to shoot in it?
I'd never heard the story before, but it's really interesting when you read into it. I think it's known as like one of the oldest American urban legends. And I think for me, when I read it for the first time, the word that stood out to me was mortician. Just the idea that it feels like a classic ghost tale, the idea that this mortician would steal dresses from corpses and sell them on. But at the same time, it feels like something that could actually happen, which is, you know, with the best urban legends.
Yeah, they live in that space of, it sounds so crazy, but it's also still possible.
I recently went to a true crime museum and I saw this, it was this beautiful dress, and I went up and read the description, and it told the story about how this was a British serial killer, wore this dress and murdered like 100 children. And suddenly I got, you know, shivers going through my body. It was so interesting, the psychology of how such a beautiful but mundane object can, you know, hold so much power and energy. And that's exactly the first thing I thought of when I read this urban legend. We can have so much fun playing with this and crafting these ghostly scares and really getting under people's skin.
Well, there is something about your clothing that is so your identity. Our clothing is how we express ourselves and telegraph to others who we are and what our intention is, or hide it, or disguise it. And there is something, I think people love buying vintage clothes, but every time you put on something that's 100 years old, you think, who else wore this? And what was their life like? And how did they die?
You go into a vintage store and you have no idea the history of what you're picking up. And like you say, for all we know, maybe someone, you know, has murdered someone in this. You know, that's a terrifying thought. And I think that's definitely something we wanted to get across through this episode, is that history and putting a lot of focus on the dress itself.
What was the most challenging scene for you to shoot in this episode?
I think perhaps the climax, which is this, it's quite a big scene set in a bathroom stall. There's quite a lot of action and there's stunts as well. And trying to suddenly flip at that moment, she goes from being quite quiet into herself within the scene, and then suddenly exploding and attacking someone, strangling and screaming. There was so much that went into that, and I think that was probably challenging, just based on getting the performance there and the focus really heavily on safe stunts, you know. And I think that was a lot for this was Leslie's first film as well that she'd done, so she was so committed and gave it her all. And thanks to the team, we had such an amazing team. Such a daunting scene felt like such a joy to film.
How much do you shot list? How much do you storyboard? How much do you just show up and figure it out?
So for me, I've got OCD in the real sense, not the kind of cleaning sense. And so that means that feeds into my directing. And so I just, my mind works, I just have to be so specific about everything, which can be really draining at times because I do multiple drafts of a shot list, you know, storyboard everything. I'm a big believer that your film or your episode is only as good as your planning.
Do you draw the storyboards? Do you have a storyboard artist you work with?
I just do them myself, and my dad's an artist, and you'd never guess that looking at my storyboards because they're all like stick men.
My mom's an artist, and it's like
Yeah.
So it's like caveman paintings.
As long as you can get the idea across to like the DP and show this is what I'm kind of looking for, maybe there's a push in here, a two shot, or, you know, as long as you can get that information across, I think it really helps as well on the day when you're pushed for time. You're just scanning through the shot list and you can see, you know, a still of what you're trying to achieve just at a glance.
Is there a formula you use for building tension and scare?
It's more about showing the environment a character is in as opposed to their reaction, because that way you place the audience as if they're really there. You know, it's almost like it becomes a documentary. You're experiencing it as the character is. And I think at the same time, reactions are so important. So it's about spending the time making sure you get the actor there as well. So it's such a technical thing, and it's something I'm still learning about. Breaking down what makes a good scare. I've got like a 200-page document where I've just broken down various horror films and, you know, what's the key scares and what happens, what techniques do they use, what works, what doesn't, and then like a little conclusion about basically what my thoughts were. Was it successful, was it not?
I'm such a fan of your work. I'm really excited to see where your career goes.
Thank you so much. It means the world, especially coming from you, because, you know, I've grown up watching all your films.
Thank you. I feel really old now. No, it's okay.
No, honestly, I think I'm still recovering from Hostel, to be honest.
Great.
Yeah, it was definitely one where I sat in the shower afterwards and thought, you know, what is life? This is amazing.
Well, you know, hopefully your films are going to do that to someone else out there. Hopefully some young viewer is completely traumatized and in the shower now going, oh God,
I know.
oh God, what am I going to do?
I hope so, I hope so.